You're watching Let the Quran Speak. Prayers have resumed at Valley Park Middle School. Those are Friday congregational prayers. And so too has the controversy surrounding it. And Brother Shabir, the controversy surrounds gender segregation. Critics say that gender segregation persists in the new arrangement. So the new arrangement is that they have a male student from the high school connected or close to this middle school who comes in on Friday and gives the sermon rather than an imam from a mosque. So of course this is a better arrangement, but critics say that gender segregation still persists. The women are still at the back and the menstruating girls are still separated and seen as different from the rest.
Well, these are issues that I believe can be worked out. There are many what we call permissions or rukhas in Islamic law that most common folk are not aware of, but the scholars are aware of this because they're poring over the books. They're opening up the tomes and checking what classical scholars have said. But most people just know the way they have always seen it done. Somebody can say, I grew up in Pakistan and this is always how it has been done. And so many sheikhs and scholars and Maulvis have gone through all of this and they did it all the same way. So who are you to say that something else can be done? But when one goes deeply into our classical textbooks, one finds that some things we have done precisely because we've always done it that way, but not because there's any injunction that says you must do it that way.
Okay.
So
what's an example of that relating to this particular circumstance?
Some people, for example, think that menstruating women cannot come into the mosque or come into the prayer space, or that they have to be in a separate area or something like this. Whereas this is not necessarily the case. There would be nothing wrong, for example, if they join the same rows of prayers, but because they're not praying with the rest, they just sit. And they're there. If somebody says, okay, but if they're in the middle of the line, it seems that the line is a little bit broken up. Well, then they can sit at the sides of the lines, and they can read a book. They can read, their own personal prayers, though not joining in the formal ritual prayer itself. So there are permissions which are there, but which people do not discuss. Now, no one looks into the deeper question as to what's wrong if a woman were to pray, for example, if she wants to pray to her Lord, like who's stopping her? There are specific injunctions in other texts that says, for example, that a woman cannot go into the Holy of Holies.
In the Muslim religious texts?
In other texts, other
okay.
than Islamic texts. But when it comes to Islamic texts, we go to the Quran, which is our main textbook. And the Quran in Surah 2, verse 222, 223, speaks about menstruation. It says, they ask you concerning menstruation, say it is something that is a minor discomfort or inconvenience. So therefore you should withdraw from the women while they are in their menses, or from the place of menstruation. See that the text here requires some interpretation, and this seems to be the best interpretation of this. And so this passage then is not really speaking about she cannot pray or she cannot fast or anything like this. Just saying that the men should not have intercourse with their wives while their wives are menstruating, and this is an old law that was there in the Old Testament as well, for some obvious harms that and the inconvenience of that situation. But if a woman wanted to pray, this verse itself is not prohibiting her from praying. In fact, there's nothing in the Quran that prohibits a woman from praying while she has her menses. There are some statements in Hadith which lead to that conclusion. But these statements themselves need to be looked at a little more carefully, and one has to ask, were these speaking about the situation the way it was because women did not pray at that time generally because they had their own ideas about this, and the faith just accommodated them with their ideas as it was, or was the faith instituting a new requirement? Let me be more specific. It's noted in Sahih al-Bukhari that the Prophet, peace be upon him, spoke about the women. It seems that we don't have time, but maybe if we do have time, we'll...
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we can discuss that.
Sure.
You're watching Let the Quran Speak. We continue our discussion about the situation at Valley Park Middle School, prayer and gender segregation. And with me is Brother Shabir. Brother Shabir, you were talking before the break about the hadith concerning menstruation. So maybe you can discuss that now.
Yeah, given our limitations in time, I'll summarize it by saying when the Prophet addressed the women, according to that hadith, he wasn't saying to them, you women cannot pray. He was saying, you women do not pray. So there's a difference between do not and cannot.
So he was referring to the cultural circumstance at the time.
It seems to me that way.
Or the social norm
this
at the
is one
time.
of the ways in which we can address the issue, dealing with the modern sensitivity that women would be asking, what's wrong with me so that I cannot pray to my Lord if I wanted to.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
And we'd like to hear from you. Please visit our website, www.quranspeaks.com. Send us your comments, your suggestions, and of course, your donations. I'm Safiya Ali. For all of us here at Let the Quran Speak, thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.